When a team loses 5 games by a combined total of 16 points, it just wasn't in the cards. You could call this the most underachieving team in Penn State history and probably be right. You can criticize the coaches and even the players plenty. But to say that bad luck has not played a large role in this Penn State 2025 season becoming what it has become simply just wouldn't be true. And the best example of that was Saturday's loss to number 2 Indiana. Penn State fought hard. Penn State played well. Penn State even had a pretty solid day at the office from both coordinators, which hasn't really happened. But sometimes it just doesn't work. And that's what happened in Saturday's game against Indiana. Joe Smeltzer, Nittany Sports Now, joined as always by Kyle Fatman Golick on Joe and the Fat Man. And Kyle, throughout this 6 game losing streak, I've been the optimist. You've been the pessimist. We've gone back and forth from a lot. But this was one of those games where we both agreed Penn State has a lot to be proud of for how it played against Indiana. Now, this Penn State fan base might not be in a consensus about that, but sometimes there's only so much you can do. And when you have dudes making the catch of the year in your end zone on 3rd and goal with 38 seconds left or whatever it was, you just got to tip your cap.
Yeah, this team is like Marty Schottenheimer. And for those, it's an old time reference for some of our younger viewers. Some of our older viewers probably will appreciate it. Marty Schottenheimer in big games was a coach that many would say if he didn't have bad luck, he'd have no luck at all. And that's really the tale of this team this year. Again, you were down on the field, Joe. I was up in the box, and I had my binoculars going, and I'm going to tell you this, Joe, on that touchdown pass. I know everyone's marveling over the catch that was made by, I believe that was Omar Cooper in the
Mm.
end zone. Um, Landon Tangwell, friend of the show, has diagrammed out, and this is what I saw in the binoculars, and this is another reason why that play was just absolutely phenomenal. All out blitz, literally no time. Like, I don't even think he set his feet. If you watch it, like, how did he get the ball off? And to locate it with that pinpoint accuracy in the only spot feasible, you know, you you tip your cap to him, but it's like, as you saw on the field, Joe, and I saw from the box, when you saw Deni Dennis Sutton go literally collapse and just bend over and go, what more can I do? You felt for them because they played to win. You know, as we talk more about it, I know everyone's going to boil it down there. So this is where the pessimist in me comes out a little bit. Um, I believe in the series before, I don't think Penn State played to win, and that's where it cost them.
Mm.
You In the first series, Katron Allen ran the ball effectively. I mean, they really ran, I believe, on a 3rd and 4, and Katron got 5 or 6 yards on it. At some point in big games, when you're a massive underdog, and look, if Penn State got one more first down, because they achieved what they were looking for, was to milk all the timeouts, okay, of Indiana, they win that game. You can't. It's irrefutable.
Yep.
I get the what was going through Kotelnicki's mind, and it's hard to criticize, like, hey, Katron Allen just ran for about 12 yards on 3 carries. If you're getting 4 yards a rush at the most recent time, I get it. But in the same vein, Indiana got it and made the adjustment where Penn State did not. I'm not saying they needed to throw it deep or something, but the play you saw on 3rd down where, Grunkmeyer bootlegs to the right and catches Rapp in the flat, that's a play you could have also thrown on 1st down, a very high percentage throw, something
Or
to a
second
safety
down.
valve. You could use Nick Singleton and have him in the flat. You know, It's all about making the plays to win the game. Sometimes it's not the defense that needs to make the stop to win the game. It's sometimes the offense got to make the first down to make the clock the 12th man.
Yeah, and that kind of I look at that, Kyle, as 2 possessions, right? The first 3 plays were all runs with Katron Allen, and that culminated in that first down, as you mentioned, on that 3rd and 4. The next 3 plays, you run it with Katron again on first down, which, okay. Why they ran it on 2nd and 10, that confuses me, and why they didn't throw it more downfield on the 3rd down play. I don't really like that. Terry Smith said in Monday's press conference that that play was supposed to be a downfield pass, but ended up Grunk had to check it down. But I think the bigger picture here is that Penn State can't really call games like them and Indiana are in a top 10 matchup. If you're fighting for a college football playoff spot or a spot in the Big Ten championship game or whatever, and you call it conservatively trying to beat Indiana, that's one thing. But when you're playing for pride and you're 3-5 and you have nothing to lose and everything to gain, I think you want to see more of that riverboat gamble. It doesn't even have to be a gamble, really. You don't need to call a freaking flea flicker or anything like that, but just kind of, do what you did to start the second half when you were down by 10. That the first 2 plays of the second half, the first one was a deep ball from Grunk to Devontae Ross, which Ross probably should have came up with for a big play. The second play, yeah, Grunk for an interception, but it wasn't a bad interception on Grunk's end. It was just, I'll have to watch it again, but somebody got a hand on it, and Fisher made a great play, intercepted. But I think having that mentality in that last drive would have been better served. And I think that's something that Penn State's coaches could do a better job with, because I don't want to hurt too much on it, because the game happened 9 days ago and, Penn State won I don't think there was anything they could have done to beat Ohio State. But that 4th and 3 from, I think it was the Ohio State 42, the first series of the game, and they decided to punt to win the battle of field position. Again, that's something where if Penn State and Ohio State were both in the top 5 like they usually are, that's the right play. But with Penn State now having nothing to lose, I think those situations in general should be managed a little differently.
Well, I'm not going to go harp on the Ohio State game. I mean, that game.
No, but I'm just using it as an example of how this team manages situations like that and kind of plays not to lose versus playing to win. That's why I brought it up. That's all.
So this is another reason what perturbs me about. And I understand. We can also beat up Katron for the fumble at the end of the first half, but this is really why it perturbed me on that, essentially that second series in that final drive there after they got that first down there. You know, Drew Aller, okay, he's played in 6 or 7 top 10 matchups. Only once did he ever have a completion percentage over 60%, and it was exactly 60% against Ohio State last year. Okay. Typically, he's had games where 5 of the 7 have been completion percentages under 55%. Ethan Grunkmeyer's had back-to-back top 10 starts against the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country. Against Ohio State, he completed 68% of his passes. Against Indiana, he completed 71%. You took the ball out of the most important person's hand. And they've done this all year, whether it's not giving it to Katron or overfeeding Nick, or, even when they had Drew in there, not trusting Drew to vertically challenge defenses down the field. Ethan Grunkmeyer played a hell of a game. Are you telling me we couldn't get something into the flat, a screen pass, something to the tight end, on a post play, something that is a high percentage? I know I'm harping on it, but Joe, I just gave you the completion percentages. Drew Aller, who was the prodigy, the 5-star, savior from Medina, Ohio, the guy that was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick and the various Venmo ads we all see, never got above 60%. The height was that. Grunkmeyer's done it twice. How do you There's an old saying in football, you know, sometimes when you run prevent defense, you prevent yourself from winning, and it's an ode to going too conservative. Penn State went way too conservative in that situation, and that's where I have the problem with it. Just that seems to be why they don't win these big games, because sometimes you got to go unconventional and trust the guys that you have to make that play that is the backbreaker, because they had Indiana on the ropes. Imagine this, Joe. You're a Muhammad Ali fan, right? You
Absolutely.
know, you can rope a dope for so long, but at some point you got to hit the son of a gun. Okay.
Well, that's a flawed analogy because Ali won that fight, but
He did, but he tired him out and then knocked him out. But what if Ollie never gets too tired himself and employs the rope a dope strategy? Then Ollie's the dope. Penn State's the dope. They they literally had the kill and didn't take it.
yeah, and this is a problem that I thought was pretty prevalent in the biggest games of the James Franklin era. Some of the biggest games, right? You think 2018, Trace McSorley is having one of the best statistical games in Penn State history. They get to 4th and 5, give the ball to Miles Sanders, and we all know what happens after that. 2024 Ohio State. You have Tyler Warren, one of the best offensive seasons Penn State ever had. 1st and goal from the 3-yard line, and you don't use him on a run play or a pass play at all, and end up getting stuffed
The,
for a goal line stand.
the crazy thing is, I think on the 4th down throw, Aller targeted Khalil Dinkins. I know he at least targeted
He
Khalil.
did, yeah, and
Okay,
that
that's
goes to
nothing
what we
against
talked.
Khalil, but you know what? In big time moments, you go to your money players. Everyone on the field knows it. You just got to do it. They when you're a money player, you live for those moments. You know you're getting the ball. You know you're going to do it. So when coaches outthink themselves and take it out of the money players' hands, and they've done it over the years, like you said, and they did it again. I'm not saying Ethan Grunkmeyer's on the same level as Mendoza or Julian Sayin, but he sure as hell was playing a lot better in big moments than Aller was. And look, you take that situation there, the fact that they didn't try to at least, even if they threw it and it gets a marginal gain, it forces the defense to have to respect the whole field because they can't just stack the box.
Yeah, and to be clear, like we're not saying this to dunk on Drew Aller. It's more perspective of how good Ethan Grunkmeyer has been and how much better he's been than a lot of people expected him to be for these first 3 games. So yeah, I think your point about Grunk is a great one. And Joel Haas from statecollege.com kind of laid out Drew's completion percentages in against top 10 teams versus Grunkenmeyer's completions percentages, and it really is telling. And we can talk about Grunkenmeyer, but where was Trevor Pena on that last drive? Why didn't they try to get the ball to him? Because he was 6 receptions, 99 yards. That's the best game a Penn State receiver's had in more than a year.
I agree. Again, there's another money player. Here's a guy who a year ago led the ACC in receiving. We got him on the team, and you start looking at it and going, well, we don't creatively use them. What are you talking about? You're not going to creatively use them. You saw my thing about, you know, frequency of targeting, and they just don't. I just don't get it. Like when Andy was on that Zoom a few weeks ago, he just looked lost, and it's perplexing to me whenever you're bringing in this talent into here and you're not trying to use your best weapons. It's so disturbing. I'm telling you, Joe. You know that's where the coaching has done self-inflicted wounds. When you have the talent to be able to do this, you got to find a way to maximize. That's what good coaches do. Penn State didn't do it, and they're starting to now. I don't know what the wait was for, and that's even more perplexing. Is did the stage and situation be too big for them, and they all choked on it because they just didn't know how to handle the pressure.
Yeah, so I think the question is, we talked about this after the game Saturday, both in our post game video and amongst ourselves off camera. But there's one of two ways this thing could go. Penn State could either think about the good things that happened against Indiana, and there were plenty of them. Grunkemeyer and Pena, we talked about. Nick Singleton had the best game we've seen him play in a long time. Zane Durant and Dennis Sutton both looked like Zane Durant and Dennis Sutton on the defensive line. So they could take the positives from that, and if they do that and approach the next three games the right way, I think they should be able to beat Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers, even with Nebraska still looking pretty good without Dylan Raiola. I think they should be able to go 6-6. But they could also be upset and sad about being so close and losing to Indiana, and that could go the other way. So there's one or two ways this thing could go. I think I'll say right now, I think Penn State is either going to go 6-6 or 3-9. I don't know if there's going to be anything in between.
I can see them doing 5-7. Um,
And
you
Nebraska's
know,
pretty good, so that they could lose that game just by losing that game. But
I've been the most pessimist, as you alluded to in the opening of this segment. And again, it's prove it to me you still got the heart. Prove it to me you still got the fight. Why I predicted Indiana to completely boat race Penn State last week was I'm taking Tyler Donohue's reporting, number one. Number two, I'm taking what I'm seeing. Number two. Number three, having played sports, believe it or not, Fatman was an athlete back in the day, and I'm not trying to make this an Al Bundy segment.
he was a lineman, believe it or not.
Yeah, true. I'm not at the caliber as Keith Goon Conlon, all respect. But I've been part of winning teams and I've been part of losing teams, and losing cripples you. And for some reason, this team has this fighting spirit. It really showed it. Like just talking with the guys post game, I'm a more of a believer now that they want to get to a bowl, because in some ways, despite this season completely just going sideways, it's something that they can say they had the resilience and the resolve to fight back, and they didn't cave in, and it'll bode well for them in their careers, both whether it's in football or not, because they've been up against it and they were able to react to it properly.
Yeah, I think the reason that they were able to come out and play as well as they did against Indiana was because there really wasn't anything to be upset about with Ohio State. They played a better team and they lost. There wasn't like, what if this turnover didn't happen? What if this pass was completed? What if we stopped them here? There was none of that. There's so many what ifs in the Indiana game that is easy to dwell on. So they should frankly beat the hell out of Michigan State. They should if they play the same way they did against Indiana. It's just a matter of not dwelling on what might have been.
Yeah, it's just in part of why I believe that they should beat Michigan State soundly is I think this team has found confidence again, and it just like all it needs now for its accelerant to fuel them the final 2 weeks is they just need a win. They need to see that the work that they've been doing materializes. That's the only thing they haven't seen. You know, you can only put moral victories up so much, but at some point, they're not going to be facing Heisman Trophy quarterbacks the rest of the way. They're not going to be facing historic defenses the rest of the way. They're facing teams that have a lot of the similar issues, if not worse than they do. And look, when you've been through hell and back, whenever you get to a situation where you can dominate and assert yourself, you're going to. And that's what I think is going to happen, Joe.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go into Michigan State and literally take them to the proverbial woodshed, no pun intended, to Michigan State. I don't see them giving up. If they do, it's just then this team is just cursed. We've seen other programs have cursed teams. but there's just something about the character of this team of they don't want their season to end on terms that they didn't want.
Yeah, and they want to get a win for Terry Smith bad. I think that's a big part of it too. Like they love Terry. They know that Terry probably isn't going to be the next head coach of Penn State, and they know that his chances to get a win as a head coach, even on an interim basis, are dwindling. So they want that experience of giving him a Jerry Neuheisel type moment where they're able to celebrate with him on the field, and then Nick Dawkins or whoever would give him the game ball in the locker room. I think they're going to fight like hell for Terry Smith because they want to get a win for him. And frankly, he deserves to get a win and multiple wins for what he's been able to do, given the circumstances.
And I think the reason the bowl becomes important to them is if they can win out and get to a bowl and say they win a bowl, Terry Smith goes out a winning coach.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, for them, they have to look at this season now, not necessarily of what happened under James. That was one team. This is a different team now. So they've faced plenty of adversity, and they've taken essentially 3 top 5 scoring defenses to the brink at some point. And look, it's not going to be as hard the rest of the way. So let's take advantage of the situation and make it happen, because then Terry Smith can walk out of here being 4-3, and this team could have some serious momentum. It would, if this team gets a 4-game winning streak, say they do the 3 and they get to the bowl, and I know I'm forecasting a lot here. What it does when it comes portal time and decision time is they found themselves. And when you find yourselves, do you really want to give up that brotherhood? And it's harder to walk away from it, Joe. It really
Yeah.
is. These next 3 weeks are very consequential for a slew of reasons. So if like these are going to be the big games, so that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, and I'll be back on camera in a second. Just have to plug my laptop in. But I think too, the fact that Terry retaining Terry Smith in any capacity is absolutely huge. I've been saying it before that I think it should be the new coach's decision, right? Whoever to keep on staff. I don't think Pat Kraft should force anybody's hand on hiring their staff for whoever the new coach is. If Pat Kraft wants to kind of nudge him to say, hey, it's probably a good idea to keep Terry Smith, to keep Ty Howe, Deion Barnes, whoever, I think those are the 3 that I would keep. And the only reason I'm not including Anthony Poindexter in there is because I think Dex is going to go with James Franklin, wherever he ends up, probably even as the defensive coordinator. If Dex isn't the defensive coordinator, it's only because Brent Pry would be. And if Franklin ends up in Virginia Tech, that ain't going to happen. So, I think Dex is gone, but I think that's going to be his choice. But this kind of segues into what's kind of been popping up amongst the Penn State beat. Mark Wogenrich from uh, Lions SI wrote a story on it. Audrey Snyder for Substack wrote a story on it. What if Terry Smith is the next general manager of Penn State football?
Again, I think he's so venerated, not only through Penn State, but people forget that he's extremely respected on a national scope as one of the top recruiters in the country. He, any coach is going to want to have that asset immediately on their staff. You want to start building a foundation. Look, a guy like Terry Smith, you're going to get automatic support from the letterman, from the community, from your natural recruiting territories. It's a no-brainer. It's a slam dunk. I don't foresee Terry Smith. The only way I don't see Terry Smith being retained is if Terry Smith doesn't want it.
Yeah.
I'm it's like 99.9% in some capacity. Now, you brought up and said, hey, what about general manager? This isn't a slight on Terry whatsoever. Okay. But I don't know if Terry Smith is cut to be a general manager in this landscape. I don't think I don't think many people know what to do with that. I mean, and everyone's
And
taken so many
that's what I was
different.
gonna say. It's like, how do we define what a good general manager is? Because we don't really. It's hard to define the role in general.
Well, I mean, here's the rub, Joe. North Carolina brought in with Belichick Michael Lombardi,
Some
who
clown named Mike Lombardi, as Jason Kelsey would say.
he's brought him in as a football personnel. Oklahoma brought in a former vice president of AT&T to be their general manager. Okay, Penn State had Andy Frank. You know, no one. There's not a rhyme or reason with it. I'm not saying that. Well, then you might say, well, Kyle, that opens the door for Terry. But I think when you're starting to talk more about contracts, player salaries, and whatnot, my feel with Terry is he's more of a guy that wants to be direct impact with the athletes. He doesn't want to be there managing and doing. He might. They may prove him wrong. I'm just taking. I'm taking a shot in the dark, Joe. But I think he would rather be on the staff in some ways. And I really think he will be retained. And I think he will still be Penn State's assistant head coach. I don't think it would be foolish. It would be to the Brian Kelly level of sending the strength and conditioning coach of 3 national champions out the door foolish if someone let
Yeah.
Terry Smith walk.
Yeah, he's the one guy you have to retain. There's others too that you could make a case for. I think you can make a case for Dion Barnes because of the connection he has in Pennsylvania. You could make a case for Poindexter, but like I said, I think James is going to take Poindexter with him. I think you could definitely make a case for Ty Howe because of him being a letterman in kind of that Terry Smith mold of a guy that was with Penn State through the darkest period in program history and helping it guide it through another dark. I shouldn't call it a dark period, but definitely a period of transition. That would be wise, not to mention what he's been able to do with the tight ends. But yeah, I think Terry Smith is the one guy you absolutely have to retain. Talking about guys that could be the next football coach at Penn State. There isn't really too much new to report among the coaching search. We know Brent Key is a candidate, Tyler Donahue, and others, us being among them. We're able to confirm that he is a candidate and have been writing about that. We knew Brian Hartline was a candidate. That's been widely reported. We knew Eli Drinkwitz was a candidate. We've known that since the day after James Franklin was fired. He was a very early candidate. But two guys I want to talk about, Kyle. We'll focus on Drinkwitz and Mike Elko. Drinkwitz is not going to the college football playoff. That makes him somebody that would be more attainable from a logistics standpoint, but the more Missouri loses, the less attractive he's going to be. And with Elko, he's probably going to the college football playoff. And we've talked about Elko. We both agree that it's unlikely. I think there's going to be a point where A&M decides to pony up and get that done because of the season he's had. But the one thing, Kyle, that makes me think of Elko, what if Texas A&M doesn't beat Texas? We saw what happened with Ryan Day last year. We got this report today about threats being made against Jeff Brom and Miller Moss at Louisville for losing a game to Cal, which isn't even a rivalry game. The way fans respond to rivalry losses, and Bill Rabinowitz talked about in his book, which isn't published yet, but he's talked about the book about Ohio State championship season, talking about what Ryan Day and his wife went through after losing to Michigan. And Rabinowitz said Ryan Day, the Day family was ready to leave Columbus if the season didn't end in a national title. And who knows what would happen if Ohio State didn't win the title and go on that warpath that they did. But my point is, that's a game on the road. That's a rivalry game. Texas A&M lost the last game against Texas in the first rendition of the rivalry, the Big 12 era. Texas A&M lost last year in what was a very publicized game. If they lose this year as the favorite to a Texas team that is still very good but is underachieved, I'm not predicting Mike Elko would be the next head football coach at Penn State, but I'm interested to see what would happen if A&M doesn't beat Texas because we know how serious that rivalry is, and we know how fans can react to teams losing in Big Ten rivalry games. So that's just an X factor that I kind of thought of.
So let's start with drink here real quick. Um, I'm gonna throw a number out of will Eli Drinkwitz be Penn State's next head coach? And I did this with Matt Rule, and I did this with Kirk Signetti. This is going to be another Kyle Golick guarantee. 0. There is no way he's going to be it. And I'm going to give you a quote right now that he said just the other day. Eli Drinkwitz was asked about Missouri being 0-6 against ranked SEC teams in the last 2 seasons. His response, yeah, they are good teams. They are good teams, and I don't do a good enough job coaching. You fired James Franklin for the exact reason.
That is true.
Are we really hyping up that Cotton Bowl victory over an abandoned Ohio State team that basically lost its starting quarterback, starting receiver, starting linebacker, a slew of injuries, and was like a shell of itself? Guess what, guys? No. That's he's perfect for Missouri. He knows that. It isn't happening. You talked about Elko, Joe. You know, he's currently won 17 of his first 22 games. Okay.
Mm.
I get how important the battle between Texas and A&M is. You know, my grandfather spent time as a cadet down in A&M. They're not getting rid of him if he loses this game. Even if people are pissed off, it's not.
I'm not saying they'd fire him. I'm just saying, would people be pissed to the point where he would want to leave College Station? Because that
I
pretty much happened with Ryan Day last year.
not well, Ryan. Well, here's the difference. Ryan Day lost to Michigan for the 4th straight time, and again to a Michigan team that was 6-5. Texas, I believe, right now is in the top 10.
Well, you're talking like that's how rational people would think. Are A&M
Eh,
fans rational?
Yes, they're way more rational. They're not. They do have their lunatic fringe, but at the same time, they've lived through the debacle that was Kevin Sumlin, Jimbo Fisher, and whatnot. Do you really think that they're going to want to throw Mike Elko away, who's had more success than any A&M coach in his first 22 games since R.C. Slocum was in the 90s? No, he's staying there. That's a top 5 job, Joe. There's not Penn State. This is gonna. I know I'm gonna anger some Penn State folks off. Texas A&M is a way better job than Penn State.
I agree.
It's it's the facts of life. Facilities blow it out of the water. Recruiting blows it out of the water. Do you realize how much money that flows on it? They literally told Jimbo, like, I know Penn State fans are like, oh, we told James Franklin to go away. We paid him 50. You're not going to be paying James Franklin $50 million. Texas A&M paid Jimbo Fisher $80 million to go away. Okay. That's legit. Penn State's going to get out of that $50 million thing because James Franklin's going to get a job pretty quickly. All right. If Mike Elko had lost to Texas 5 years in a like 2 or 3 years in a row beyond this, since they've kind of gotten to this level, I could see it, Joe. But this is like the first time since the early 90s they've been this good. Like they like the whole Johnny Manziel thing was because they got that late October, like October, November upset against Alabama. And then you saw what happened the very next year. Alabama went B2A on A&M.
And they underachieved
And
spectacularly.
yeah, and that kind of led to the ending of the Kevin Sumlin era. And Elko isn't coming up here. I'm not ready to put the 0 stamp on it, but it's pretty damn close. It's Elko would have to self-destruct here. Go like he'd have to go lose 4 in a row here. I don't see it happening. I think we're further down the chain on that thing, Joe.
So talking about it's interesting to me how if Penn State hires an assistant, they're going to have to get a whole new team. If they hire an already established head coach, yeah, they'd have to get a whole new team. But he could bring, at the quote Coach Prime, he could bring Louis with him, right? They could, if they hire Jeff Brom, they could get a lot of good Louisville players. If they hire Drinkwitz, they could get Missouri guys. How imperative do you think it would be to hire a head coach over an assistant? Because if you hire an assistant, I think you're committing to a 2 to 3 year rebuild, and that doesn't really align with what Pat Kraft seems to want. So I'm not saying I would be scared of hiring a guy like Brian Hartline to be the next head coach, but does that align with Pat Kraft wanting Penn State to be a good football team in 2026, which based on everything he said, that's what they want.
You know, wanting the this is a rough job market to find. Like this is definitely a candidate's market for sure because there's more jobs to be had than there are good candidates. So a candidate can use this as leverage, get what they want where at their current situation and not move. And that's what's going to happen. This is a job where it rarely comes open. You have all the resources in the world to do what you want. You just got to execute them. It's a tough task. You got to go up against Ohio State, which is the best program in the nation. You know that, Joe. But guess what? You got all the money and resources. There's the facility upgrades that are happening that will put Penn State in a conversation with anybody. They have a natural recruiting footprint in the DMV and in the Mid Atlantic, and they're a national brand that can go get talent, whether it's in California, Texas, or Florida. It is that type of job. But with that comes the fact that with other guys having top 5 caliber jobs too, doesn't mean you're necessarily going to pull Lincoln Riley and do that. We've seen how well that has worked with Riley. It hasn't. When it comes to an assist, we'd love to have that proven commodity, but I don't think it's going to happen, Joe. You're either going to get a head coach, like there's a reason why I have guys like Ryan Silverfield and Bob Chesney high on my lists, because that's who is realistic. And at some point, Penn State has to realize if you don't want that, you're going to have to go get a hot shot commodity. Brian Hartline's getting some pretty good endorsements. Urban Meyer gave him an endorsement. We have to assume Ryan Day may have given him one on my footage. We're assuming. We're not saying, we're assuming. Okay. At some point, it's gonna happen. Someone's gonna say yes. And I think they know who it is. It's just they can't, it's not the timing.
Yeah, and I think Jeff Brom would be my ideal candidate. It'd be hard to get him to leave Louisville, but just because of they're probably not making the playoff now, right? And Penn State, money talks that they wanted him, they could make a big pitch to get him. I don't know if Jeff Brom will leave Louisville to Penn State, but I do think that there is interest, and the playoffs not going to get in the way, so we'll just have to see what happens there. But talking about other sports, wrestling, I talked with Flow Wrestling's Christian Piles for about a half hour about this season and the season opener against Oklahoma. And just to tease a few nuggets, Christian thinks PJ Duke's going to be the guy at 157, not Tyler Kasak, which is interesting because Tyler Kasak won the Big Ten last season and entered the NCAA championships as the number 1 seed. But Duke is just that good. He's a generational talent. He beat multiple national champions and even one 4-time national champion in Yanni Diak-McCullis of Cornell over the summer in freestyle. And if PJ Duke is the guy, he's earned the right to be the guy. So that's a little spiel on wrestling. Kyle, what have you seen from Penn State hockey? They had a big series over the weekend, and it was a valiant effort in the first game. The second game, Michigan State just kind of blew them away.
So the first game was kind of like, how can I correlate this? While it was a great first game and it ended in overtime there, the big thing there was Michigan State was kind of feeling up in essentially in a boxing match what Penn State could throw at them. And what I think with Penn State right now, this is going to be a column that's going to come out tomorrow, is, and Godowski spoke to this earlier today, it's, you got a lot of young guys that are used to wide open ice, and sometimes their play is very unstructured. And when you're going against a team, especially Adam Nightingale's Spartans, who are very disciplined, very regimented on their checking, you can't just run and gun. Like if you watched a lot of the out of conference slate, you'd notice like at times Penn State would just kind of go impromptu and whatnot. And a lot of things that I pressed Godowski about after those games, he was lamenting. So you're going to hear a lot of that. Biggest thing that came out of the series is, you know, the B2B line got solved. And that's going to be something that Godowski has to be able to get through to the rest of his lines. Is if someone's able to neutralize DeMarsico, Serrato, and Weebush, the only person who got a goal this weekend, that last weekend, Joe, was McKenna, and it was off of a redirect against Augustine, who is the best goalie in the Big Ten, maybe the best goalie in college hockey overall. I mean, quite frankly, Augustine should have had his not only his third shutout, which he got on Saturday, but he should have had his fourth shutout on Friday. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest goal, and I'm going to say this, McKenna's is special. I don't want to downplay McKenna whatsoever. His hockey IQ, his hands, what he can do in open ice is impressive. But remember, he's only 17 years old. Guy like Porter Matone, who is 19 years old, who has a body like a Corey Perry, you know, he showed his physical prowess in that series. And really, in the second game, he really dominated in that series, really setting up in a series Charlie Strammel, who had a 4-point evening on Saturday night. So Penn State goes in back to the Pegula Arena. They're 9-3 on the season, Joe. We'll have some rink intel on the number 2 Wolverines, who are built eerily the same way as Michigan State. So check it out definitely on Nittany Sports Now. That should be out on either Wednesday or Thursday.
All right. Last thing, do you have a mystery box segment?
Oh, Joe, I always have a mystery box segment. So I'm still infatuated with coaching meltdowns. I just find them always great. Terry Smith had one that Fox caught. I mean, obviously wasn't a press one that which is questions going to, but if you saw what they caught on the Fox cam, it was absolutely epic. You could definitely tell that there was some 4-letter vernacular going on. So we're going to go up to Boston. We're going to see old coach mates. Joe, last week, the Patriots and Boston College had 2 epic football coaching meltdowns. You had Teapot, good old Bill O'Brien, go off on a reporter, and now we got the "What's up, Trevor" now in our lexicon. I mean, God bless it. And then you had Mike Vrabel talking about the trade deadline, like there's no such thing as an almost trade. It's you're either it's like impregnating a woman. You're either having it or not, and it just didn't happen. So between those two, Joe, which one do we like?
Well, I haven't really looked too much into the Vrabel one, so I guess I can only talk about O'Brien. I think it was wrong. I think he missed by about 180 degrees there. There were a few of our colleagues on the beat who did cover Penn State with O'Brien, kind of saw the humor in it, like what you mentioned, the "What's up, Trevor," and I respect where you're coming from because they knew Bill personally and they could justifiably think, hey, that's Bill being Bill or whatever. So I understand why, but to me, just from the outside, there's nothing funny about a reporter getting flipped out on for asking a good question. Uh, that's just wrong on a lot of levels. Bill O'Brien has done an awful job at Boston College. That's why they're 1-8. I'm not saying he hasn't been a good coach, hasn't been a good coordinator. What he did at Penn State deserves to be commended forever. I think he did a good job with the Houston Texans overall until some genius decided to let him be the general manager. And any head coach, general manager is just not going to work in sports even more. Bill Belichick couldn't do it forever. Why would Bill O'Brien be able to do it? So that was just a role he should not have had, and he wasn't very good at it, and that led to the downfall of all of it. But yeah, just absolute awful handlement of that situation by Bill O'Brien. And maybe if I didn't know him, I would be able to see the humor of it. But there's nothing. If there's times when reporters deserve to be put in their place for asking either just a bad question or a poorly worded question. But that was neither. That was a very fair question, James Franklin. The question, for those who didn't see it, was, "What's your message to Boston College fans who are pretty upset about this what the program has been this year?" And James Franklin was asked similar questions with Penn State fans along the same lines, and he always answered it with grace and class and answered it very well. Didn't have to belittle anybody. So, yeah, Bill O'Brien's done a lot of good in his coaching career. What he's done as a father too, his son Jack, and everything they've had to deal with is just absolutely commendable. And I'm not trying to paint Bill O'Brien as a bad guy in general, but how he handled that, two thumbs down for me.
So so Joe, you don't believe that it's all sunshine and in La La Land like Bob used to that said in that speech up in Chestnut Hill? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I don't. And frankly, I was very happy to see Boston College respond to all of that by getting their doors kicked in by SMU. I mean, I really was.
Oh man. So it's my dream to have a coach go off on me like that. Like I thought I was gonna I triggered James enough at the Big Ten media days in 2024 with this rant versus speech comment. Um I I'll just say this. There's that David Jones in me that would if I was Mike, who was the reporter that Bill O'Brien completely went off on. That would make my entire day. I don't know. Maybe I'm messed up in the head, Joe. Maybe that's where I'm from because I know it's an instant viral moment. Kind of like how Austin had his, did they have fun? It was a nice day out, sort of thing. You know, Vrabel's was more tactful. That's the thing I'm going to give him the edge on. Like, I don't know if like I pay a lot of attention to Patriots for some reason because I'm a big fan of what Tom Curran and Phil Perry do, uh, covering them, and I just think Vrabel just is so creative, like in everything. I mean, it goes back to remember when we were all in COVID shutdown and they had the
Mhm.
NFL draft and they did the live shot in Vrabel's house and you could see someone on the toilet at Vrabel's house. I mean, that just goes to show that this guy he just lays it out there. Bill O'Brien he's just realizing like it's harder than what it is. And look, I love Bill. I love his wife Colleen. His son Jack is an inspiration to us all. I agree with you, Joe. I don't think he's going anywhere, nor should he for Boston College. I
Oh,
think
who's going to hire him?
well, I don't think he's good. Well, I don't want Boston College to get rid of him. I think he generally wants to make it a good developmental program, and that's what Boston College is. Um, but I'm going to give the edge to Vrabel for this reason: the fact that he took like a question that when you follow NFL beats enough, and you hear people say, well, how close was this and that, and then you always get the coach speak back, well, there's always conversation. Vrabel just put it on the line there. That was authentic, and I'm going to give, Bill O'Brien was just, I guess someone messed up his order at Dunkin' or something, or or the teapot wasn't steaming. But I'm going Vrabel here. It was so fun. Definitely check it out, Joe.
Yeah, the line that irritated me about Brian's rant, probably something not a lot of people picked up on, but when he told the reporter, "You come in here like once a month," anybody he should be thankful that anybody is covering that bum ass operation right now. Like,
Oh, agree. And
you're in a pro sports city, right? You got the Bruins season starting out. The Celtics are playing. Patriots are good again. At least have a great quarterback again. Anybody covering Boston College shouldn't be belittled for the frequency of.
agree. And look, Joe, and like for our audience, it's like this. You know, college athletics, most people who cover are, they're freelancers. I think Mike's more established, but he probably has other beats or other things he has to do. People who give their time to cover, create content for your program, especially Boston College, in such a pro environment that you alluded to, Joe, you should not belittle whatsoever. But I'm going to say the really juicy one part of the rant is poor Trevor asked something, I think, about the Fenway Bowl, and he O'Brien had another mini burst later, like, we weren't here for the Fenway Bowl. So
Yeah, and that was ill advised. On no disrespect to Trevor, but on his end, I'm kind of not that warranted snapping, but like given the situation, probably don't ask about something that O'Brien wasn't there for. I side more with Bob on that.
the funny thing is, and so the reason everyone calls Bill O'Brien Teapot because he goes off at random times. And Mike Vrabel, when he took the Patriots job over, he was on I believe Nesson or WEI, one of the either on TV or on the radio. And Bill O'Brien called and he shared a story about when they were all together on the Patriots staff. Like, he earned a nickname Teapot because when they would be in meetings together, he would all of a sudden just go off on everybody randomly, like profanities together that were so creative. Then all of a sudden after it, he would just be so kind. And it was like, you're like a teapot, you go off. And he literally did that. And sometimes that shows immaturity in a coach, in my opinion.
Yeah. And yeah, Bill's a seasoned vet now, right? He's been either a college head coach or a pro or high level college coordinator for about 15 years now.
Yeah.
So
He's
just
been at
be better.
jobs and jobs. Like, think about it. He coached Tom Brady. He then head coached at Penn State, then was a head coach and a GM with the Texans, then went to Alabama and
Mhm.
was rehabilitated under Nick Saban. Went back to the Patriots for a year before getting to Boston, and then let's not forget the magical 2-week run in Columbus.
That
I
was
mean,
awesome.
that was a landmark for Bob's career, and then ending up in Boston College as their head coach. Like, sometimes you just got to. Bob just needs to chill. Vrabel was cool about it. He just made a joke of a situation instead of giving the same coach hackneyed responses that we all get. He decided to be just blunt about it. That's why I give that the edge. It's like, you know, poor Bill. All we got out of the Bill O'Brien rant is like, "What's up, Trevor?" Because look, I don't. I'd love to know what Trevor's thoughts were when Bill did that, because it's like, holy crap, that's a fastball.
Yep. While we're at it, what do you think of Pat Narduzzi saying that Notre Dame wasn't a must-win game? I don't see the issue.
So I, I don't see an issue with it on the surface. I get what he was trying to say, but it goes back to, like, good old Neil Brown and how he completely fumbled the Mike Ostie question of did you have fun? You know, it's he should have been like this. Every game is it was we want to win, but a lot of our goals reside in the ACC, and this game doesn't count towards the ACC. We want to win this game. It's a big game for our fans and whatnot. Um, but we also got to be cognizant of ACC games take a little bit more priority. I mean, I think that would have gone over a lot better. But when he said, like, I don't care if they come in and blow us out by 100,
Yeah, that was
lying, 100% lying. And I would love if we ever got like Nate Breisinger or Vuk on our show, and those are our Pittsburgh Sports Now brethren, we love them to death. Be like, hey, if you guys ever play Penn State again, is it not a must win? Are you okay if we blow you out by 100 or something? I mean that's going to be forever fodder as long as Narduzzi's with the program. You can't say that. There, you don't. What are you prepare all week to win a game, right, Joe? Like, I don't think these guys show up there and it's like, yeah, we're trying to lose by 100 this week. This is what we're preparing for. They're not, you know.
But I think he wants the team to be loose for that, and it's hard when you're going to get um a sold out stadium. Game
No,
days there.
nonsense.
But you're not going to make it any easier on the team by upplaying the significance of the matchup in the press conference. You kind of have to downplay it. Did Narduzzi go overboard in downplaying it? Yeah, I think we can all agree on that. But
Oh my God, he did. And here's the thing: this is what athletes live their whole lives for. This is like probably for a lot of kids that are on that Pitt team. This is the game they're going to remember the rest of their life.
yeah, but I don't think there's anything good that Narduzzi could gain by saying something like, "And we live to play Notre Dame. This is where the big boys play. This is huge. We can prove ourselves." The team knows that. He
They
doesn't.
know that too. And the thing is, they're retiring Aaron Donald's number. I mean, this weekend's going to be a huge weekend for that program. So, yeah, he messed up big time.
I
Like,
wouldn't say big time. I mean, I don't.
I would say big time. You don't, you know, you just don't say what I think he misspoke badly. I don't think he truly means it. I'm going to be interested whenever because he has like a midweek thing that he goes with reporters.
Mm,
I'm going to see if anyone presses them for it on him for it. Probably be one of the first questions and see what his response is. But he you can't say that whatsoever. Like there's a reason we have a scoreboard. If we didn't have a scoreboard, it would be fun and everyone would play for 4 hours. But we have a scoreboard. Someone got to win. You don't play to, quoting good old Herman, where it's you play to win the game. You don't play this game. You don't not play to win the not important ones because no team can just turn it on and turn it off. I
yeah,
just think that it was just horrible on his part.
maybe I'm more sympathetic to Narduzzi because I got so sick of James saying that Bowling Green meant the same as Ohio State. But um, yeah. Anyway, that's gonna do it for Joe and the Fat Man. The Penn State coaching search rolls on. The wrestling season's starting. Hockey season's in full swing. A lot of good things happening on Nittany Sports now. But until next time, this has been Joe and the Fat Man.
Good night, Canada.